my wife, was cheating on me, and she does not know I know. I left her a note at the hotel. 9 years ago, I married the woman I thought was my soulmate, and now I realize I was living with a complete stranger. We live in Tennessee, and my wife works as a home health nurse. She basically sets her own schedule visiting patients in their homes throughout the week. Early in our marriage, she had a miscarriage, and we just never tried having kids after that. The whole experience was devastating for both of us, but we figured we would focus on building our life together instead. For the first several years, everything felt normal and happy. My wife would usually get home around 7 in the evening on most weekdays. Sometimes she would get home a little earlier if her patient schedule was light. We both had our own friend groups that we would hang out with. She had a group of girlfriends from work and the neighborhood that she would go out with occasionally. I had a couple of guys I would meet up with at the sports bar to watch football, or we would play golf together, or shoot some hoops at the local court. But I was always home at a decent time, and I always told my wife exactly where I was going. I kept my location sharing turned on at all times so she could see where I was if she needed me. We always had complete transparency about our phones too. My wife could pick up my phone and use it whenever she wanted. I would have a passcode on my phone during work hours, but as soon as I got home, I would turn it off. She never had any restrictions on her phone either, and I could look at it anytime I wanted. We trusted each other completely and had no secrets, or at least I thought we did not have any secrets. Around the 7th year of our marriage, I started noticing that my wife's behavior was shifting in subtle ways. She would not text me like she used to throughout the day. Before this change, we would have full conversations over text while we were both at work. I would ask her how her day was going with her patients, and she would tell me about the people she was visiting. She would check in with me about what I wanted for dinner or what our plans were for the weekend. But all of a sudden, we barely texted each other at all. I would send her messages asking about her day, and she would either not respond or give me very short answers. When I asked her about it once, we got into a disagreement about me being too needy. She said she was busy with work and could not be on her phone all the time. I never brought it up again because I did not want to seem controlling or clingy, but I noticed a change and it bothered me. When she would hang out with her girlfriends in the beginning of our marriage, she would text me constantly. She would call me from the restaurant or bar where they were having dinner. I could hear people talking and laughing in the background. She would even FaceTime me sometimes to show me what she was eating or to let me say hi to her friends. But that behavior completely stopped around the same time that our texting decreased. Now, when she went out with her girlfriends, I would not hear from her until she got home. No check-ins, no calls, no FaceTime sessions. She would just disappear for 4 or 5 hours and then come home acting like everything was normal. Our sex life also dwindled to almost nothing during this same time period. We used to be intimate 2 or 3 times a week, which felt healthy and normal for a married couple. But it went to 0 really fast. She would always have excuses about being tired from work or not feeling well. I tried to be understanding because I knew her job could be physically and emotionally demanding, but months went by without any physical intimacy, and that had never happened before in our marriage. Despite all these changes, I had no idea she was cheating on me. Whenever I looked at her phone or went through her messages, I did not find anything suspicious. Her text conversations with her friends seemed normal. Her call history did not show any unusual numbers or patterns. I was not actively spying on her, but I would occasionally glance at her phone when she left it out. Nothing ever caught my attention or made me think she was hiding something. I figured we were just going through a rough patch that a lot of married couples experience. Maybe the stress of her job was affecting her mood and behavior. Maybe we had fallen into a routine that was making us both feel disconnected. I thought we could work through whatever was happening between us. But then something occurred that made me realize The situation was much worse than I had imagined. My wife came home late one evening after supposedly going out with her girlfriends. She was acting a little strange, more distant than usual. When she came into our bedroom, she immediately started undressing to take a shower. As she was taking off her clothes, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There was a red spot on the back of her left butt cheek. It was perfectly round and dark, like someone had been sucking on her skin. I almost asked her what the hell that spot was, but something stopped me. Instead, I kept quiet and watched her disappear into the bathroom. My mind was racing as I tried to process what I had just seen. That red mark looked exactly like a hickey, but why would my wife have a hickey on her ass from a girl's night out? I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, trying to come up with any innocent explanation for what I had seen. Maybe she had bumped into something at work and bruised herself. Maybe she had some kind of skin reaction or rash that just happened to look like a hickey. But deep down, I knew exactly what that red mark was. Someone had been sucking on my wife's skin, and it was not me. I did not say anything to her about it. Something told me that confronting her directly would just give her an opportunity to lie and cover her tracks. If she was cheating, I needed to be smarter about how I handled the situation. 2 days later, she told me she was going out with her girlfriends again. The timing felt suspicious considering what I had discovered, but I kept my reaction neutral. The only thing I said was, "Have fun," as she headed out the door. I spent that entire evening wondering if she was creating another hickey with whoever she was really seeing. The thought made me angry, but I forced myself to stay calm. Over the next week or so, I started investigating our phone bill to see if any numbers stuck out. I logged into our account online and went through months of call and text records. I was looking for patterns, frequent numbers, or anything that might indicate she was in regular contact with someone I did not know about. I spent hours analyzing the data, checking timestamps, and cross-referencing numbers, but I did not find anything suspicious. All of her calls and texts seemed to go to numbers I recognized as her friends, co-workers, or family members. Either she was being extremely careful about how she communicated with her affair partner, or they were finding other ways to stay in touch. Maybe they were using a messaging app that would not show up on our phone bill, or maybe they were only talking in person and not using phones at all. The lack of evidence in the phone records was frustrating, but it did not change what I had seen with my own eyes. That hickey was real, and it meant my wife was physically involved with someone else. A few weeks later, my wife mentioned that she wanted to visit her parents for a few days. She said she had not seen them in a while and wanted to spend some quality time with them. I told her that sounded like a good idea, but I would not be able to come because I had to work. She seemed perfectly fine with going by herself, which struck me as a little odd. Usually she would try to rearrange the timing so we could go together, or she would be disappointed that I could not join her. But this time she just said okay and started making plans for the solo trip. She was planning to leave on a Friday and come back the following Thursday, almost a full week away from home. I helped her pack her bag and acted like everything was normal. But inside, I was wondering if this trip was really about visiting her parents or if she was planning to meet up with her affair partner. Her parents lived about 2 hours away, so it would be easy for her to use them as cover for other activities. The first couple of days she was gone, she would text me occasionally with updates about what she was doing. Dinner with her parents, shopping with her mom, watching movies together. All of it sounded plausible and normal, but I could not shake the feeling that something was not right about this whole situation. Saturday evening, I was sitting at home eating pizza and watching TV when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an alert from our credit card company about a pending charge. My first thought was that someone had stolen our card information and was using it fraudulently. We had just paid off this particular card, so there should not have been any charges on it. When I opened the alert to see what the charge was for, I thought, what the hell? It was a charge for a hotel, near where my wife's parents live. The amount was for multiple nights, and it was pending on our account. Why would my wife need a hotel room when she was supposedly staying with her parents, unless she was not actually staying with her parents at all? I could barely hold the phone as I called the hotel to get their exact address. I told the person on the phone that I needed to verify the location for a charge that had appeared on my credit card. They gave me the address and directions without any questions. The hotel was about 2 hours away from my house, just like my wife had said, but it was also only about 15 minutes away from her parents' house. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. The drive usually took 2 hours, but I made it in an hour and a half. I was driving faster than I should have been, but I didn't care. When I pulled into the hotel parking lot, I immediately started scanning for my wife's car. It did not take long to find it. There it was, parked in the middle of the lot, like she had every right to be there. I parked a few spaces away and just sat in my truck for a few minutes. Part of me was hoping I would see her come out of the hotel with her parents or some other innocent explanation, but I knew that was not going to happen. I took a picture of the hotel building and then a photo of her car with the license plate clearly visible. I needed evidence of what I was seeing in case she tried to deny it later. After documenting everything, I drove straight back home. I did not go inside the hotel or try to confront her. I had seen enough to confirm what I already suspected. My wife was cheating on me, and she was using her parents as an alibi to spend time with her affair partner. That hickey on her ass suddenly made complete sense. She was not out having innocent girls' nights with her friends. She was meeting up with some guy and doing things that left marks on her body. I had all the evidence I needed to know that my marriage was over. I spent the rest of that weekend in a fog, going through the motions of normal life, while my mind raced through all the implications of what I had discovered. My wife continued texting me with updates about her supposed visit with her parents. She sent me a picture of dinner they had made together. She told me about going shopping with her mom and watching old movies. I responded to her messages with short, neutral replies. Things like, "Sounds fun and glad you are having a good time." I did not want to tip her off that I knew what was really happening. If she suspected that I was onto her, she might cut her trip short or find some other way to cover her tracks. I needed time to figure out my next steps. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day researching divorce attorneys. I found one who specialized in cases involving adultery and had good reviews from other clients. When I called his office, they were able to fit me in for a consultation that same afternoon. I drove to his office with the photos I had taken at the hotel and explained the entire situation. He asked me if I wanted to hire a private investigator to gather additional proof of the affair. I told him that I did not think that was necessary. Knowing that she was at a hotel instead of her parents' house was enough for me. I did not need photos of her with another man or recordings of their conversations. The hotel charge and the location of her car told me everything I needed to know. He agreed that we had sufficient grounds to move forward. I decided to file for divorce based on irreconcilable differences rather than adultery. Even though I knew she was cheating, I did not want to drag the process out with a messy, fault-based divorce. I just wanted to end the marriage as quickly and cleanly as possible. The lawyer said he could have the papers prepared within a few days. My wife was planning to be gone for almost a week, which gave me time to get everything in order. I signed the retainer agreement and the initial paperwork that afternoon. Walking out of that law office, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that I was finally taking action to get out of a marriage built on lies. I was saddened that the woman I had loved for 9 years had betrayed me so completely, but I knew I was making the right decision. I could not spend the rest of my life wondering if she was being faithful or lying to my face. The next few days were surreal. My wife continued checking in with me from her visit with her parents. She would call me in the evenings to chat about her day. She sounded relaxed and happy, probably because She was getting away with what she thought was the perfect cover story. Meanwhile, I was quietly preparing to blow up her entire world. I had already started packing my belongings and making arrangements to move out. Since we were renting our house and did not own any major assets together, the logistics were relatively simple. Both of our cars were paid off, so there would not be any complicated financial arrangements. We had a joint savings account that we could split, and that was about it. In some ways, the simplicity of our financial situation made the whole process less painful. A few days after filing for divorce, I decided to drive back to the hotel. I had an idea that I thought would be the perfect way to let my wife know that I was aware of her deception. I was not going to confront her in person or call her to have a dramatic argument. Instead, I was going to leave her a message that would make it clear I knew exactly what she was doing. I wrote a short note that said simply, "I know, and good luck." I put the note in an envelope and addressed it to my wife using her full name. When I got to the hotel, I walked up to the front desk and handed the envelope to the clerk. I told him that I needed to ensure a guest received this message, but I didn't know which room she was in. He said he would make sure it got delivered to her. I thanked him and walked out of the hotel. The note was deliberately brief and ambiguous. She would have to wonder exactly how much I knew and what I was planning to do about it. The uncertainty would probably drive her crazy, which seemed like appropriate payback for months of deception. I drove home and continued packing my things. My wife was supposed to return in 3 days, and I wanted to be completely moved out before she got back. I did not want to be there when she walked through the door and found my note. I did not want to see her face when she realized that her marriage was over. I had said everything I needed to say in those 5 simple words. The rest of the conversation could happen through lawyers. 2 days later, I loaded the last of my belongings into my truck and drove away from the house we had shared for 9 years. I left my key on the kitchen counter along with a copy of the divorce papers. If she had any questions about what was happening, she could call my attorney. I was done talking to her directly. I checked into an extended stay hotel and waited for the fallout to begin. My wife was scheduled to return the next day, and I knew she would be walking into a situation she had never seen coming. Her perfect little affair was about to cost her everything she thought she had secured. I felt no guilt about leaving her to deal with the consequences of her choices. She had made her bed, and now she could lie in it, preferably in whatever hotel room she had been using to cheat on me. My wife returned home 3 days later to find an empty house and divorce papers waiting on the kitchen counter. I can only imagine the shock she must have felt, walking into what she thought was her normal life, only to discover that everything had fallen apart while she was gone. The note I had left at the hotel had probably prepared her for something, but finding the house completely cleared out must have been devastating. She tried calling me immediately, but I did not answer. She left several voicemails that started out confused and angry, then became increasingly desperate. As the reality of the situation set in, she wanted explanations. She wanted to talk. She wanted to know how I had found out about the hotel. But I was done having conversations with her. Everything she needed to know was in the divorce papers, and anything else could go through our attorneys. I had my lawyer arrange for her to be served with the official papers at her central office, where she coordinated her home health visits. Her co-workers and supervisors will witness the whole thing, which probably made it even more mortifying. But I felt no sympathy for her embarrassment. She had chosen to destroy our marriage with her lies and cheating. Now she could deal with the consequences of those choices in front of everyone she worked with. The actual divorce process moved surprisingly quickly. Since we didn't have kids or complicated assets to divide, there wasn't much to fight about. My wife did not go after any alimony, which surprised me a little. Maybe she knew that her infidelity would make it challenging to claim spousal support. Or maybe she just wanted to get the whole thing over with as quickly as possible. We agreed to split our savings account down the middle, which seemed fair enough. The only contentious issue was the credit card charge from her hotel stay. I insisted that she pay the full amount since it was her affair that had created the expense. She agreed to cover the charge without much argument. After she paid off the hotel bill, I immediately closed the credit card account. She had been an authorized user on the card, and I no longer wanted her to have access to it. I also wanted to make sure she could not run up any more charges that I might be responsible for. Closing the account felt like severing one of the last financial ties between us. Within 8 weeks, our 9-year marriage was officially over. I felt a combination of relief and sadness when I received the final decree in the mail. Relief that I was free from a relationship built on deception. Sadness that the woman I had loved for so long had turned out to be someone I did not know at all. But I knew I had made the right decision. I could not have continued living with someone who was capable of such elaborate lies and betrayal. A few months after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from one of my ex-wife's friends. She said she had something to tell me about what had really been going on during the last few years of our marriage. We met for coffee, and she explained that she had been feeling guilty about keeping my ex-wife's secrets. She told me that my ex-wife had been having an affair for over a year. It was not just a one-time thing or a brief fling. It was a sustained relationship with a man she had met through her work. According to her friend, they had been meeting regularly at various locations around town. The hotel visits had become more frequent in the months leading up to our divorce. My ex-wife had been telling her friends that she was planning to leave me for this other man. She was trying to figure out the best way to end our marriage without appearing to be the bad guy. The friend said that my ex-wife had been spinning a narrative about how our marriage had been unhappy for years. She was trying to make it seem like the divorce was a mutual decision based on incompatibility. But her friends knew the truth about the affair, and at least one of them had finally gotten tired of keeping the secret. Hearing all of this was both validating and infuriating. Validating because it confirmed that my instincts about her behavior had been correct. Infuriating because it showed just how calculating and manipulative she had been. I told her friend that I had suspected something was going on, especially after I noticed that red spot on her ass one night when she came home from supposedly hanging out with her girlfriends. I explained that I had known it was a hickey, and that had been the moment I realized she was being unfaithful. Her friend said that my ex-wife had been meeting her affair partner regularly during those girls' nights out. Sometimes she would actually go out with her friends first, then leave early to meet him. Other times, she would skip the group activities entirely and use them as cover stories. The elaborate deception had been going on for much longer than I had realized. Her friend also mentioned that my ex-wife had been devastated when she found my note at the hotel. She had apparently called several of her friends in a panic, trying to figure out how I had discovered her location. She had been so careful about covering her tracks that she could not understand how I had found out about the hotel. Learning about the credit card alert had been a shock to her because she had forgotten that I would receive notifications about charges on the account. In her mind, she had planned the perfect cover story with her parents. She never expected that a simple hotel charge would expose her entire scheme. After talking to her friend, I felt even more confident that I had handled the situation correctly. I had trusted my instincts, gathered the evidence I needed, and taken decisive action to end the marriage. I had not wasted time trying to work things out or giving her opportunities to lie her way out of the situation. I had simply recognized that the woman I married no longer existed, and I had moved on with my life. The whole experience taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is trust your gut when something feels wrong. That hickey on her ass had been the first real sign that she was cheating. Everything else had just been confirmation of what I already knew deep down. I was glad I had not ignored that red flag or talked myself out of investigating further. Sometimes the obvious answer is the correct answer, even when you do not want to believe it.